Welcome everyone, this is Zozo Stockwatch, and let's get ready for the week ahead for August 28th through September 1st. And yes, September 1st will be here on Friday next week. Stocks rose higher for the week in very quiet August trading as the market looks for direction. Trump pointing fingers at everyone, lots of dissension in the government ranks. Trump aide Sebastian Gorka resigns from the White House. Build a wall or I'll shut the government down, says Trump. Is the government going to shut down? Trump wants his $1.6 billion to build the wall. Janet Yellen and Draghi made comments and helped lift the markets on Friday. Amazon hits the grocery sector. More on that when the video continues. So we had comments from Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen on Friday at the Jackson Hole Symposium, and she said that the events of the crisis demand action, needed reforms were implemented, and these reforms have made the system safer, she said, in prepared marks. So the market liked this, and it also, she didn't give much clues as to whether she's going to raise rates or hike the rates. So actually the market liked that and moved up on Friday. And we'll go through all the markets. Let's just go through some of the news headlines. After that, Draghi spoke about at 3 o'clock on Friday, and he sent the euro moving up as he sees that Draghi was optimistic, and he saw that the global economy was firming up in his opinion. So Draghi said that in his comments, said that on his comments, and that helped the euro to move up on Friday. Unfortunately, we do have a hurricane going on in Texas, and our prayers go out to everyone in Texas that they survived this flooding and hurricane. At one point it was up to category 4, but was weakening when it hit land, but a lot of flooding is still expected in Texas. Amazon really hit the grocers, Kroger, Costco, and even Walmart. It says it will start cutting prices on some of the whole food items, and so this hit the grocers. So everything is up in the air as far as the grocers, and we'll look into those stocks in a little bit. Something that's still hanging over the Trump administration is if Gary Cohn is going to resign. He did draft a letter of resignation, but then he pulled the letter, and that was after the Charlottesville. So this was in the New York Times on August 25th. So this is still looming over the markets and Donald Trump's administration. So more on that. And then, over the weekend, or actually I should say on, over the weekend, Friday, I guess you could call it, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin declares his 100% confident that the debt ceiling will be raised. So if that happens, then that will, save the day from the government getting shut down. So we'll see on that. So next week there'll be more Politico talk and wranglings going on about the debt ceiling, and if we're going to, get it passed, and if Trump is going to get his wall. Currently, Trump's approval rating is, I think, at all-time, lows. So we'll see if he can battle back from that and get the Republicans and moving in the right direction for this debt ceiling. And will he get his wall? That's the question. So let's go ahead and look at some of the markets. We'll look at, first off, the Dow Jones Industrials, the top 30 stocks. And we see that we're holding tough here on the weekly chart. We were holding that 10 SMA. The markets for the week, the Dow was up 0.64% for the week. On the daily chart, we are holding above the 5 EMA. And so that's showing strength in the Dow Jones 30, but we're still under the 20 SMA on the Dow Jones. We popped up to it and then we pulled back from it. The Dow was up 30 points on Friday. As far as the NASDAQ composite goes, you see on this daily chart, we're still below the 20 SMA at about that 6,300 spot, and we're trying to hold above the 100 SMA on the daily chart here. As we move to the weekly chart, we're holding the 20 SMA on the NASDAQ composite. We came down to it and we held And that's around that, let's see, what number is that on the 20 SMA for the weekly chart? That's at 6,183. So we'll call it 6,200 for the NASDAQ is that number to watch. The utilities remain strong and moving up for the week, up over 1% for the week. The transports so far have held the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. And if we look at it on the IYT, which is the ETF, we also see on the weekly chart that it held the 50 SMA. And the 50 SMA on the weekly chart is that 162.51 spot. On the daily chart, we are below the 200 SMA for the IYT. So we did have a previous low of 162.38. So watch that 162.38, and also we'll have to keep an eye on that 50 SMA, like we said, was 162.51, 162.50. So that's the important number on the transports right now. As far as the dollar itself, let's take a look. The dollar has been showing, trending down, showing weakness, and we are back at that 200 SMA, the green line you see here on the blue weekly chart. And but this candle looks a little bit more ominous than the previous ones. So let's see if we're going to hold this around that 92 spot for the US dollar, which is the 200 SMA is 92.52. And on the daily chart, you can see, the trend down that the dollar has had and the weakness. Next up, we'll take a look at the GDX and the gold miner ETF, showing some strength, trying to get over that $24 spot on the GDX, the gold miners. The GDX on the weekly is getting above the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. For the junior gold miners, we're still kind of below that 34 EMA on the weekly and the 50, but we did end up 1.65% for the week. If we look at it on the daily chart, we still have work to do above the 200 SMA for the GDXJ. As far as gold itself, the GLD, we still are trying to get above that 123 spot for GLD. If we look at it on the weekly chart, you can see how many times we've come up to it and pulled back, and we still have not gotten through that 123 on the GLD. HACK, which is the cybersecurity ETF, has pulled that back now down to the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. And you see it's held it here before, and it seems like we're holding there again. And that currently is at 28.59, so we'll call it 28.50 for HACK. Some of those names are FireEye, Palo Alto Networks, Cyber, and CUDA are some of the names in that ETF. As far as the daily goes, we went below the 200 SMA couple of times, and now we've turned up, but we can't seem to get back over the 50 SMA or the 100 SMA currently on HACK. HYG, which is the high yield corporate bond, we did come down to the 200 SMA here, and now we're bouncing above it, and we're back over the 50 SMA on the daily chart on the HYG. As far as the weekly chart, we still have to get above the 200 SMA on the HYG. Let's take a look at some of the bio stocks, and you see that we pulled back on the weekly. We'll call it the 300 area, and we came down to the 20 SMA on the weekly chart, the red line right here, and that's currently at 303.46. So we'll have to watch that 300 spot. We'll also look at it on the daily chart. We came down, we pushed down to the 100 SMA, and now we've bounced off. We're trying to get back above the 50 SMA on the IBB. We can also look at the XBI real fast, and you can see that's holding above the 100 SMA, and that did get above the 50 SMA, but we pulled back to close near it on the XBI. Here's the weekly chart of the XBI, and you see the 10 SMA on the weekly chart is kind of in the way right now. LabU is also staying under the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. In the airlines on Friday, we did get a little bit of a recovery. JETS is the ETF for the airlines, and such names are AAL, UAL, JBLU, and you can see they all kind of bounced a little bit on Friday. LUV, some bounces in those names, and you see for JETS on the weekly chart, we came down to the 50 SMA on JETS and bounced up off of that. So you might want to watch the jets and airlines for more recovery for next week. Let's just look at a couple of them real fast on the weekly chart. So you see we came down to the 150 SMA on the weekly chart here. And if we look at it on the daily chart, we came down to my 300 SMA. Not many people use this, but we came down to the 300 SMA. That shows me that they were oversold, and we did bounce in that group. Next up, we'll take a look at copper, JJC, and you see it's continuing to push up and make new highs on copper. Next up, we'll also take a look at the OIH. And about a 1% recovery in the OIH for this week. A little bit of a bounce on the weekly chart. If we go ahead and look at it on the daily chart, you see we did get back above the yellow dotted line here, the 5 EMA. We're back above the 10 SMA on the daily chart for the OIH. Some of those names include Schlumberger, and you see the nice pop there, trying to get back over the 10 and the 5 EMA. Halliburton also, Rig also moving up and trying to get back above the next stop would be the 20 SMA, the red line you see right here. So some bounce back in those names, in the oil names. As far as USO, we'll take a look at that on the daily chart. We are holding above the 50 SMA on the daily chart for the USO. If we bring it over to the weekly chart, you see we're still in this kind of congestion and tight range here. We are holding above the 10 SMA currently on the USO. Let's go ahead and look at light sweet crude real fast, WTI, and you see it remains in this range. 55 was the top here, and about $43 was that low, so we're stuck in the middle of that range. If we go to the daily chart, pretty much same thing, holding above the 50 SMA. Below the 200 SMA on WTI crude oil, which closed at 47.87 on Friday. Next up, we'll take a quick look, since we're doing energy, we'll take a quick look at the UNG, and you see this tight consolidation, but now we're starting to break down below the lower trend line a little bit. I guess you could say we held it for right now on the daily. As far as the weekly goes, really nothing much here. Can't get going, couldn't get above 675. So that is kind of just trailing off as far as the UNG. Like we said with the dollar, the UNP is the ETF for the dollar, and you see the weakness there. Also, as far as the daily chart for the UUP, you see that's down near those lows of let's see, that number is low 23.98, and that was back on August 2nd. So we are right there right now on the UUP. We will also go back to ROBO, which is the automation index, and you see that's actually holding strong, holding above the 10 SMA on the daily chart. As far as your weekly, we're holding above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart for ROBO. Silver made a nice gain this week. For the week, silver was up, we'll call it like a fraction, I guess, but it was up. And you see that we are still have a lot of work to do in SLV. As far as the daily chart, Friday we were up 0.50% for Friday. You see the volume that came in, and we're trying to get and hold above this $16 level and see if we can get a continuation. Let's go ahead and look at the Qs real fast, and you see we're still in this tight consolidation here on the Qs, unable to get over the 20 SMA on the daily chart. If we go into the weekly chart, you see we're holding above this trend line here. We can see it here also. So we're holding above this bottom gap up line here on the Qs at about that 140 area. On the weekly chart, we are trying to hold that 10 SMA on the weekly chart. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of the the steel ETF on the weekly chart. We're holding above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. For the daily chart, we are holding above the 5 EMA and trying to take out this 42 level for the SLX. Some of those names would be US Steel, which is turning up and trying to get back above 25, but keeps failing, getting rejected by 25. AKS is another name in the steels, not looking too good, remaining under the 20 SMA. TMST, another steel stock. STLD, not doing too much this week. For Friday though, it was up 1.55% on STLD. And NUE, Nucor, that one, looks almost, trying to hold this 400 SMA on my daily chart. So SLX was up, but the steel stocks, as a group, still looking kind of on the weak side. We will look at the SMH next, and as you can see, we're right in the middle of this range, and if you want, you can see the consolidation better here. And you see we're in this type wedge pattern. We can't get above 87 currently. We were as high as, in that 90 spot. We were as low as 80. So right now we're kind of, in the middle of this range. So we'll see what they want to do next week with that. But if you look at the weekly chart, we are holding above the 10 SMA and holding above the 20 SMA. And you notice here on the weekly chart, we've never broken 20 SMA from here, here. We touched it here and never broke, and we came down to it here and still haven't broke the 20 SMA on the weekly chart. All right, so keep that in mind for the SMH. Next up, we have the SPY, and you see we're holding this weekly trend line here. 240 is really important right now. That's the important number. And we couldn't get back over, they have this high here of 249, I think, 248.91 on the SPY. So, that's our range right now. We'll call it 250 to 240. And we are threatening maybe to break this weekly trend line here. So keep your eye on that 240 spot on the SPY. As far as the daily chart, you see we came up to the 20 SMA, which is currently at 245.67. So 245.67 was your Friday high, and we couldn't get above that. So we will see what they want to do for the week ahead. So watch this 20 SMA on the SPY. If we can get above it, that would be good for the bulls. And we'll see what they want to do, if oil's going to move up with the storm, if that'll move the SPY up and whatnot. Let's go ahead and go through. We will go through some ETFs. First one up is XLF. And the banking ETF, financial ETF, trying to hold this 50 SMA. We popped up, we pulled back, and still trying to get above that and hold above the 50. And then we have the 20 SMA up above. As far as the weekly, trying to get back above 25 and try to maintain and hold above the 10 SMA. Some of the banks, JP Morgan on the weekly, there you see it hanging around the 10 SMA. Trying to get back above the 20 SMA on the daily chart, but no luck so far. Citigroup, pretty much same thing. Bank America. If you notice on Citigroup, we have this indecision candle, inverted hammer, and you can draw your line here. And, whoops, and you see the consolidation going on there. And so Citigroup, trying to get back over 68, but so far no luck on that number for the banks and Citigroup. Let's look at the regionals. KRE coming off the bottom, but not with a lot of volume or anything. And on the weekly, we're trying to hang on to the 50 SMA on the weekly for the regional bank. Here's the metals and mining ETF, and you see the strength coming off this 100 SMA. We tagged it a few times, and now we've popped up, and we have a few consecutive candles, and we are above the 50. We're back above the 200 on the metals and mining ETF. So keep some of these stocks on watch, and we'll go through those in another video, stocks to watch video, which comes out on Sunday. It's currently Saturday my time, and so keep your eye on the XME. As far as the weekly goes, we're back above the 34 moving average on the weekly, the dotted line you see here. We're above the faster moving averages. We're above the 50 SMA, trying to take out maybe that 32 spot on the XME. So keep your eye on that. XOP, nothing much going on there. So I mean, turning up a little bit, but still with a lot of damage done to it. Still below the 50 SMA. Next up, we will take a look at XHB, which is the home builders, and that's just hanging around the 150 SMA on the daily chart. XRT, these are the retailers. We did get some bounce this week in some of the retailers. Still below the 50 SMA, still below a angled down 20 SMA. On the weekly, you can see we're kind of just coming off the bottom here. We held this 38 area on XRT, so the buyers came in again, the dip buyers, and trying to defend this 38 spot on the XRT. Let's see if there's any others of interest. XLI, the Select Industrial, holding above the 20 SMA on the weekly chart. As far as the daily chart, hanging around this 100 SMA, but still a lot of, work to do above the 50 SMA. XLU, very strong. XLY, hanging around the 150. And XLV, trying to get back over the 50 SMA. As far as the weekly goes for the XLV, you see that we're holding above this 77 spot. It was kind of the breakout spot on it, the XLV. And but we pull back to the 20 SMA. So now let's see if they can get the XLV back over the 10 SMA, the light blue line you see there. So I think that's pretty much it for the markets. I'm just checking to see if there's any that I missed. The IYT we did. We talked about oil. Oh, IWM. I would hate to do a video and forget to look at the IWM, which came down to that 134 spot they held, but we're still below the weekly trend line here on the IWM. If we look at it on the daily chart, you see we're still below the 13 EMA, still below the 50 and the 200, the 20 SMA, which are curled over now. And we're right at the 200. The green line right here is the 200 SMA. We hit that and got rejected from the 200 SMA for the IWM. So we're going to need the small caps to, start getting involved again. IWC, this came up to the 20 SMA and also the 200 SMA on the IWC. This is the micro caps. As far as the weekly goes, we came down to that 84 spot. We're holding, but as you can see, we're below a lot of the moving averages here. And I think that is about it as far as the markets, right? IBB, yeah, we did cover that. IBB is done. UUP we did. XME, JJC we spoke about. Oh, DBB. This is the power shares, the base metal funds, and you see the strength on the weekly here as we got over all the moving averages. And on the daily chart, we popped up. I don't like this candle too much, right? If we take our Bollinger Bands and we put those on there, we kind of have a situation where we might be getting a pullback. You see here we went through the Bollinger Bands and pushed down. Here we didn't go through the Bollinger Bands, but we have this like inverted hammer. So we'll see if there's going to be a continuation down on the DBB. All right, so I'll be back and we'll set you up with what's, let's get ready for the week ahead, and that'll be coming up in a moment. So for your earnings next week, you have the main one for Monday is XXI, and that is Standex International, so you might want to keep an eye on that one. As far as the afternoon, after the bell, we have CTLT, EXA, HIL, PRXL, and PSEC. Tuesday, we have coming out before the bell, Best Buy, BNS, BMO, so some Canadian banks coming out, Scotiabank, SFUN will be before the bell on August 29th. Hain, HAIN, will be coming out before the bell. JILL, As far as after the close, Defense Company, AVAV, H&R Block, CAL, NCS, OLLI, and SCSC, and that's for after the bell on Tuesday. For Wednesday, you see we have more earnings coming out. ADI, and Analog Devices, ADI, BNED, Bob Evans, CHS, DY, GII, SOL, VRA, YGE, and that's for the 30th. Wednesday, that's before the bell. Box, BOX, CTRP, FIVE, 5, GEF, KEYS, PAHC, SMTC, SCVL, and Workday, WDAY. So Workday will be reporting on Wednesday after the close. Thursday before the open, we got Campbell Soups reporting, CPB, CIEN, Sienna will be reporting, Dollar General, GCO, LE, TITN, and Toronto Dominion Bank, TD, and that's before the bell Thursday. After the bell, we have AMBA, COO, EFII, Lulu will be reporting after the bell. Lulu. Also, NTNX will be reporting Thursday after the close. Palo Alto Networks, PANW, Restoration Hardware, RH, TECD will be reporting after the bell on Thursday. So no earnings before or after the bell on Friday. So this is your earnings for the week coming up for August 28th. I'll leave that up for a second for you, and then we'll move on to the earnings calls. For earnings calls for Monday, you see it's very limited, but earnings cast, where I get this from, shows you that, you know, the earnings call, you click on this and you can listen to the call. Next up, we have Tuesday, and Best Buy will be at 8 o'clock. So Hanes will be at 8:30. S-Fun will be at 8 o'clock. So some conference calls. After the bell, you have that AVAV. That's a defense contractor, and they also they're into drones. AVAV. So maybe you want to keep an eye on that one. And then Tuesday conference calls. Wednesday, Thursday, and so forth for your conference calls. Palo Alto Networks in the afternoon at 4:30, and then Friday no calls scheduled. So that's your conference calls for the week ahead. And then we'll go ahead and get into our economic calendar. Really not much for Monday the 28th. Unemployment rate from Japan at 7:30 at night. Let's see, as far as Tuesday economic information, nothing major. The main thing here is the 4:30 API crude oil data. That's going to be on Tuesday the 29th. Next up for Wednesday, we have MBA mortgage applications, ADP employment report, and you know what that means. When you see the ADP, that means we're going to get the employment numbers on Friday. Corporate profits, GDP coming out at 8:30 on Wednesday. We do have a little bit of Fed speak this week, 9:15 a.m. Jerome Powell. The oil numbers come out at 10:30. So we have the API of 4:30 on Tuesday, and then 10:30 we have the EIA petroleum. Some numbers coming out from Japan and China on Wednesday night, and also Tuesday night 7:30 and 10 to 8 we have some numbers coming out from Japan. As far as Thursday goes, chain store sales will be coming out. We have some numbers coming out from Europe, France CPI, France PPI, Chicago PMI, and what else? Nat gas report at 10:30, pending home sales at 10 o'clock on Thursday. More numbers coming out from China and Japan, and this calendar is provided by the Trade Exchange. So you might want to, it's a free calendar, you might want to get this for yourself. Motor vehicle sales on Friday, September 1st. the employment situation, also known as the non-farm payrolls, at 8:30 a.m. on Friday, PMI 945. So on Friday you see it picks up, and then we have that Baker Hughes rig count, so that keep an eye on the USO and oil on Friday. I had ANF up 28%, a retailer. AEO up 15% for the week. PSTG up 20% for the week. URBN up 12% for the week. DLTR up 8% for the week. Another retailer up for the week was Macy's, up 8%. DG was up 5% for the week. Dollar General also up for the week. We had Alcoa up 9% for the week. FCX up 8%, and this is what helped the XME move up, that ETF that I spoke to you about. Some shippers, SALT, that was up 11% for the week. Also up EGLE, Eagle Bulk Shipping, and you can't see it by this chart, but that was up 8% for the week on EGLE. And I'll just spread that out for you a little bit. DSX, another shipper, was up 7% for the week. BECN, because of the storm coming in, building and supplies, this stock was up 17% for the week. Let's check out GNRC. That's the company that makes generators, and that was up close to 6% for the week due to Storm Harvey hitting Texas. Next up, we had ADMS, was up 39% for the week. They got approval. ACOR was up 14% for the week. MOSY was up 40% for the week on MOSY. PDLI, an oil name, I'm sorry, a biotech name, excuse me, BDLI was up 10% for the week. XOMA was up 48% for the week. RWLK was up 22% for the week. Also up this week, VERI was up 75%. IMMU was up 23%. WUBA 58 was up 26% for the week. ITCI, a biotech, up 37%. RTNB, which got halted I think 15 times or more this week, was up 177% for the week. DMTX, which was I believe bought out, was up 142%. CDNA was up, on this name we were up 51% on CDNA for the week. ONCE was up 7% for the week. SPLK, they had earnings, they were up 10% for the week. KIRK, another retailer, was up 37% for the week. PERY, nice comeback, they were up 20% for the week on PERY. And a nice bounce in some of the retailers this week, pretty much came back from the dead, a lot of them, right? We see Perry, PERY, gapped up on their earnings. They were pretty much down, you know, and out, and they all bounced back. So nice bounces in the retailers. And now let's take a look at some of your worst stocks for the week. So with Amazon getting that approval for the buyout of Whole Foods, WFM, a lot of these grocer stocks took a big hit. First up for worst stocks for the week is Costco, and that was down 3% for the week. KR down 5% for the week. Walmart was down almost 1% for the week, and that was because they think that Amazon's going to shake up the grocery industry. So keep your eye on that. And Costco, like we said, moving down 3% for the week. SFM was also one that was down. Sprouts Farms, and that was down 10%. UNFI down 6% in that same category and group. GME, after their earnings, that stock was down 9% for the week. AU, a gold stock, actually was down 9% for the week when gold was up. DPZ was down 5% for the week, the pizza, which was, absolutely just killing it. And now we're taking a little bit of a sell-off here in Domino's Pizza. Next up, we have Teva, which will not stop going down, was down another 6% for the week. And we're trying to find that bottom in Teva. CAK down another 3% for the week. And you see the big hit this stock has taken from, we'll call it 66 all the way down to 41 on CAKE. Next up, ACET down 29% for the week. MOMO is down 19% for the week. LZB down 22% for the week. PETS took a hit this week and they were down 21% for the week. RAVN down 14% for the week. TEDU down 25% for the week. COTY down 14% for the week. ELF down 11% for the week. Ulta came out with earnings this week, and that probably drove down ELF also, and that was down 13% for the week on Ulta. CRME down 41% for the week. TOPS down 19% for the week, and that's Shipper. And DRYS was also down another 9% for the week, and you see all the reverse splits. We're still at $3 on DRYS, but that was down 9% for the week. I mean, this chart is so bad, you have to open it almost, it's crazy. And with all the splits and whatnot, and still down another 9% for the week on, and makes our worst stocks for the week again. And I think that's what, like the third or fourth week in a row that we've seen dries on the worst stocks of the week. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of your major stocks. Apple holding above the 10 SMA and holding in there. Let's see, we had a low on Friday of 159.27, a high of 160.56. Next up, we'll take a look at Amgen, still below the 20 SMA on the daily chart. Amazon still below the trend line here, and Amazon pushing down on the lower Bollinger Bands down at that 940 spot, and still gliding below the 5 with the 5 EMA, the yellow line you see here. So Amazon showing weakness, but that could all change on Monday. AVGO, this one popped up, to 260, and now we're pulling back. They had earnings this week, and their earnings were in line, and so that wasn't good enough for AVGO, and a little bit of a pullback. If we look at it on the weekly chart, though, we still are holding the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. As far as Apple goes, we're still above this 155 and still above the 10 SMA, which I neglected to show you. Next, BABA just continues to power up, but we do have this threatening candle now on BABA on the weekly, so just keep your eye on that. And we did move up through the Bollinger Band and we've pulled back. So are we going to get continuation to the downside on BABA? BAC, just take a quick look at some banks. Nothing much going on there. Biogen, one of the majors in the IBB, popped up, pulled back. So this one's still unable to get going. Citigroup, we looked at. Celgene, another one, biotech stock, pulls back to the 20 SMA on the weekly, and still under the 50 SMA on the daily, the blue line there. Facebook, threatening that 166 level now again on Facebook, and we'll take a look at the weekly chart. But even if we break that, the 10 SMA on Facebook is down here at 162.58. So, even if it broke that 166, there's still not too much damage done. And you see we haven't broken the 20 SMA in a while on Facebook. Next up, we'll take a look at the Google. We are coming up to that trend line, maybe that 900 spot on Google. So watch that, if we get down near that 900 on Google. Next up, we'll take a look at Netflix, and we are still hanging around this 50 SMA, but this candle looks a little more threatening than the previous candles. Next stop might be the 100 SMA around that 160 area, As far as the weekly chart, we did get below the 10 SMA on Netflix and Nvidia. Still holding strong. The weekly chart, we're in this consolidation. That 170 is proving to be resistance right now. As far as the daily goes, you see here, that 170, how important it is. We're still above the 50 SMA on the daily chart for Nvidia. Price line, just because it is a leader, has been selling off and below the 5 EMA now, may touch that 200 SMA. And lastly, we'll take a look at Tesla. Hanging in there, even with the shorts increasing in the name, still holding above the 50 SMA on the weekly chart. Not too much damage done. We came down to the 20 SMA and now trying to get back above the 10 SMA on the weekly chart. So that's the last one I have to look at. This has been Zozo Stock Watch. This has been your Let's Get Ready for the Week Ahead for August 28th through September 1st. I hope this information helps you, and I'll be back Sunday with stocks to watch.